Alright, hello again. This time I'd like to talk some more about compositing and some techniques we can use to extract a better quality matte from some green screen footage that was not really technically good quality footage. It has some fairly serious issues, and we're going to try to deal with those and talk about some ways to improve the quality of your mattes for doing compositing with green screen and that sort of setup. So let's go ahead and get started. First, I'd like to thank Hollywood Camera Works. I always got to look here to remember that name. HollywoodCameraWorks.com for supplying some green screen footage. They've recorded a bunch of green screen footage for people who need to practice their skills in the art. So thanks a lot for that. And go ahead and get started with this shot that we've downloaded. They came as compressed PNGs, I believe. Image sync, which we loaded it with animation load sequence. Created a dog waffle animation out of it, saved it out as a DWA file, so it'll be quicker to load next time. It's simply an uncompressed raw format containing all the pixels of your bitmap. Alright, so the first thing we noticed about this image, well, actually apparently not the first thing we noticed, but after we zoomed in, we noticed something rather significantly wrong with it. If you look here on the arm, and especially here on this shoulder, and some also on the hair, the face, on the edges where the green screen and the skin meet, especially right in this one little spot on the shoulder, you'll notice there's a technical problem with the video itself. I'm not sure if this came about because the limitations of the quality of the camera. You can also especially see it here on this foot. In this foot, you see these double thick borders, and even worse than the double thick pixel border is these areas where it seems like it's almost the scan lines are reversed somehow, and you're getting these dark lines, and then you're getting these interlaced with these light lines, or in this case you're getting grayscale intermixed with flesh tones, which is really strange. Or it's kind of green on this side and then it's flesh tones on this side, so it's as if the something in the camera was flipping the pixels, or something crazy was going on. We don't really know what caused that. But one thing we thought about, we don't want to just blur this image. Blurring the image would help even that out, but it would also make it very blurry. We really want to just deal with the scan. If you think about it, it's sort of like an interlaced image flipped on its side horizontally, or 90 degrees. So we're just going to go ahead and deal with that by. In fact, we might just keep this as is. But when we could deal with that, would go to rotate it 90 degrees, go to video and reduce flicker, and that would actually blend out these on a instead of just doing a blur, it does sort of a blending in just one direction, and then you'd rotate it 90 degrees back, or negative 90 degrees back, and that would help relieve that. But I think we're going to leave that for now. But what we want to do is, when we create a matte for this, we're going to want to blur that matte but keep the video itself solid. So we're going to separate out the matte and manipulate the matte instead of actually changing the video. And I think that will actually give us clean looking edges without actually having to go in and alter this video. If this were for a film or something, this would be a fail. This would not be, unless it's going to be shrunk down considerably, this would not be high quality enough to actually use for anything. Now if we were going to shrink this down, it would be as much of a problem because these pixels would get a lot smaller, or these blocks rather. Not even pixels, they're like 2 or 3 pixels wide. Not sure really what's going on. Alright, but the first thing we got to do is zoom out, and we notice we have some garbage part of the set. We've got let's see, we've got some black stuff over here, whatever that is. We've got this fan. So we're going to remove those first. Make sure you're on the first frame, and we're going to click comma on the keyboard to select a greenish color using the color picker. Hit the Alt key. Actually, first we're going to select the filled rectangle. Make sure it's on filled shape there. The trick there is there's like a dividing line, and if you click in the upper corner, you'll get the unfilled, and if you click in the lower corner underneath the dividing line, you'll get the filled. So same with the circle, you get the field if you click in the lower quarter of that, or lower side of that. So we're going to make sure we're on the filled rectangle. Hold Alt, make sure we're on the first frame, and just go ahead and select that, just the part we want to remove. And it's going to go through every frame and use that rectangle. Same for every frame. And also note there's a part we have to be careful about here. We don't want to overwrite that, so I might just do this as two separate parts. Alt, and get that. Just making sure we're not blocking out anything that needs to be in the shot. And one more to get rid of this fan. Alt, and take that out. Alright. So we've created a garbage mat basically to remove all the features that were in our shot. And I might go ahead and store a copy of this. In fact, I don't need the original anymore. I'll go to Animation, Store. I'm going to store it to disk since these are fairly large sequences. Instead of storing the memory, or a 32-bit application, there's only so much memory space to work with. So I'm going to store it to disk instead. It's pretty fast anyways. I'm on a solid state drive and it goes pretty quick. Even on a hard drive it's pretty quick. It's all raw and it goes through it really fast. Alright, so we've got our footage. Now we're going to try to create a usable mat for that, or a key. I'm going to go to Combine or Composite with Swap and Green Screen. And the first thing we want to do is create a black and white mat. And the first thing we're going to worry about is just getting the entire body in there without might have to leave some of this some of these feet showing. We might have to leave some of this dark up there, but we want to make sure the entirety of this transparent area is taken care of. I'm going to go ahead and animate that. We might have to go ahead and make another mat to get more precisely around these edges. Oh, I got a little too much in there than I really wanted. But we want to make sure we have a clean mat for at least. Oh, you can really see how bad these mats are now. Look how awful these look. These edges, they're so awful. Look, you got these really thick double pixel wide things happening and all kinds of crazy stuff. Looks terrible. Alright, that's one reason we're gonna have to blur this out. We're only gonna blur the mat though, we're not gonna blur the original image. So let's store a copy of that. Now we might have to isolate certain parts of it, like maybe down by the feet. We'll make a mat just for that area. Let me restore this. Excuse me. And let's see. Alright, so that gives us two mats anyways. That gives us a starting point. Let's maybe do one third one, and we can come back and try to combine different elements of different mats that we have. So let me store a copy of this. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about how we've used these separate mats to make one single mat with a better quality. If you use this one, you would notice that these areas in here are just too plain transparent. We want a little more opacity in that. We want just a little bit of transparency in that. We don't want to look like it's completely invisible. And then this first one, I mean, it's just unusable amounts of garbage in the bottom of the frame and stuff like that. And we might do a final one to get around the feet and that kind of thing. So, like I said, when we come back, we'll talk to you about how we've accomplished building a final mat for this and how we combine it then into a finished composited images. Thanks for watching, and talk to you later. Alright, and we're back, and as you can see, I think we pulled about as good a mat as we're going to get off of this particular video sequence. I'll go briefly over how we accomplish this, and then we'll go ahead and look at some of the other issues. I've stored that as a dog waffle animation, so we can recall it later. I put it right there. Now let's go back and see how we isolated parts of a mat where we had parts we liked and parts where we liked from another video, and we combined them from two different videos. So let's see. I had one that was pretty good, but I wanted the transparency in the or the opacity in these veils to be a lot darker, and I had a video that was dark, but it was just really completely worthless as far as the key under the feet, and there's some other garbage in there. So let's talk about how we did this. Let's go back to this one here. This was a pretty good one, but we had to isolate the feet and get rid of this junk around the bottom first. So I'm going to use the well, a good way to do it would be to use the lasso tool. I didn't use that, but let's use the lasso tool. This will be a little bit clearer, I think. And I'm just going to select, let's see, let's select what we want to keep, like that, and let's blur this out a bit. Selection, Gaussian blur, make it somewhat blurry. And we want to keep the feet from this mat here. These feet look pretty good on this one, so we're going to click use as animated swap image. That puts it in the swap image, and we're just going to combine that using combine mix buffers. And if you go there, you can see that we can mix between one and the other. Click on the animate button, apply to all frames, and you can see it eliminates the garbage under the feet there for us. That's very helpful. We have a pretty good mat at this point, except for one problem, which is that these veils are just not dark enough. They're too transparent. So let me clear that mat, and if I haven't already done so, I would store a copy of this and put it somewhere. Oops, was that memory or disk? I didn't look. Okay. And then we want to go and make these darker, so we need this fixed first. Restore this one. And we really first got to fix these feet, and then we got to mat out some of this garbage here. So let's do what we just did there. Let's take that one we just stored, use that as animated swap image. Let's get rid of that while we're at it. Let's do these feet all in there, maybe some of that right there. Also select this area up here, some of that there, there's a little bit here, and a little bit there. I'm gonna blur this out slightly. Hit OK, and make sure I'm using that as a swap image. Mix buffers, and boom, they're gone. Hit animate, and we fixed it. Alright, give that a few minutes. There's still a little bit of garbage down here. That's because this mat was blurred out. It blurred it towards the bottom as well. We can just use the rectangle tool to remove that. So now we have this completely filled in, completely black mat, but we do want to have some opacity in there, some transparency rather. So we want to combine this and this together just with a kind of a cross dissolve. So let's clear that selection. Make sure that's one we want to use. As animated swap image. Sometimes I scrub back and forth just to make sure it's got it into the current swap image. Combine and mix. And now we have exact control over how much opacity we want inside these veils without really having to worry about the feet and all that stuff. Say I want about that much, just go ahead and click animate, and we're done. And like I said, that's about as good as we're going to get with this particular video sequence. It's not a high quality video sequence. I am going to go ahead and blur this because these edges are just too awful looking. So let's see. I just said we wanted to fix this little part at the bottom. I'll just go to the color picker, select that rectangle tool, the filled rectangle, hold Alt down, select that, and we're done. Alright, so let me get rid of everything else and just keep this one mat that we've got. We're going to call that our final product as far as mats go. I'll store a copy of that. You might want to save it to disk at this point, but I'm just going to go ahead and store it. as a temporary copy. It's just good for the current session. So if you want a more permanent version, you might want to go ahead and save it there. I'm going to go ahead and blur this. Simple blur might do it. You might want to Gaussian blur it. Let's see. Let's try that. Animate. Okay. And that's going to take a few moments. Let's see. Should be doing it. Let's see. Where's it at? Well, I can see the mouse pointer's busy, so it must be doing something. So there it goes. Alright. Not sure what that delay was all about, but might have gone into virtual memory or something, I don't know. Alright, let me clear. No, we don't need to clear alpha. Actually, we're done with that. One thing, if we were to use this matte, since we blurred it, we would get black edges around our matted object, because these edges are spread out. So one thing we could probably do is either maximize this, or I might try another trick and use light diffusion. Let's see how this works. There we go. You can see it kind of, just from the outside edges, it kind of gives it this dissolved look, or this soft look around the edges. So let's just use a little bit of light diffusion and see if that doesn't do the trick. I'm gonna animate that. Getting kind of ghostly looking at this point. If that didn't work, you might try maximizing it. A couple other options. A flood fill might be good because it isolates just the part. It won't be like the parts inside won't be affected. Just the outside parts would be affected. You might flood fill with a tolerance, and that would actually kind of eat away the outside borders. But that'll only work if you don't have filled in areas. So just be aware of that. So let's see how we've done. I'll store a copy of this. And the first thing we're going to need to do is make sure we've eliminated the green out of this image we want to composite. So I'll go to the combine with, let's see, combine with, or composite with, and we're going to want to turn off that show matte, of course. And we don't actually want to composite it at this point. We just want to remove green. So I'm going to remove both of these things. I'll put them both all the way up. So we're not actually going to composite anything. We're just going to remove green from this. How much green you want to remove is up to you. Let's see. I'm going to do pretty much all the way up. I'm going to color correct it a little bit because you got to have a little bit of green in there. And I'm going to click animate. And that is just now removing. Yeah, I mean, you can really see how awful this video is. You can see like this interlace, kind of like a horizontal interlace pattern. It's really strange. Alright, now at this point, all we really have to do is find a background and blend it through this key we just made. So that's not real hard to do. I'll just use this forest background I have here. I'll put that in the swap image. Ideally, you would not want her floating in the air, but we'll just go ahead and do it to see what it looks like. Worst comes to worst, you could always use the transform tool or the shift tool to move her down closer to the bottom of the frame. In fact, let's go ahead and do that. Transform, shift, and well, we don't want her feet again at the top. Let's just put it right there for now. Animate that. Another little thing here we might want to remove at some point, but let's just get on with the show. Of course, if you do that, it would be helpful if you do the exact same thing to your matte. So let's actually not do that for now. Although you could do that, you can actually repeat something in the shift tool. I believe there's a way to do that. But composite green screen. I'll just go ahead and and now all we have to do is go ahead and composite that. So Let me put that back in the swap image, and I'm going to just use not the compositing tool at this point. We're actually just going to cut it, shoot it through a animated selection. So we just take the mat that we made. At this point, I forget which one it was. I think it was this one. So click Use as Animated Selection. Very similar to use as Animated Swap Image, but it makes a selection now. In fact, if I scrub through it, you'll see that selection is in fact animated, and it is following the outline of this person that we just composited. Alright, so all we have to do now is combine with and mix buffer, and there you go. In fact, we have this very soft looking selection. Not completely happy with the look of this mat. I think we'd want to do a little color correction on it or something. Not going to worry about it for right now. I'm going to hit animate, and it'll go ahead and blit that through that mask for us. Yes, she's floating in the air. All right. We can crop that later if we really wanted to. Alright, let me clear the selection, and be absolutely sure to turn off that uses animated selection so it doesn't come back to haunt you again in the future. And we'll zoom in on this and see how we did. There's still a little bit of a dark border around that. We would want to eliminate that for sure by using a maximize filter on our selection or something like that. But this was a very difficult problem in some ways. There was a lot of stuff we had to do to go through to get it pull a clean mat off that, and still also get the transparency we wanted on this this shawl, or this whatever this thing is, this veil. Still more we can do on that. Still more we could have done to make a better quality mat on that. But that's one of those problems you're going to come up against in the real world of visual effects. Though you don't always get a perfect green screen mat to work with. We still have this low quality edges around here, but they're not as bad as they would be if we hadn't blurred that mask out significantly. This is probably just a little too blurry. If you handed this into your supervisor, you'd probably get it thrown back in your face. One thing you could do is use a value adjustment on that mask or something to that effect. Let me store a copy of that. Let's see. Go back here. Kind of decided these were just a little too dark also, so that will work in our favor. Adjust value. Let's see what to actually adjust levels would be better. Levels, and usually when there's a spike here, that means there's noise. So you actually want to somewhere. So you might actually want to remove that spike, anyways. I'm going to adjust that down a little bit. And you can see adjusting this down actually shrinks these edges a little bit. That's one way you can shrink those edges. You could also do that. I'm going to animate that. And there we go. Alright, so those are just a few of the things we could do to improve the quality of this green screen footage. This is fairly borderline unusable footage at this point. As I said earlier, I was going to try and fix that green screen footage some. Let's see if we can do something with that. So as we were saying, there's this weird pattern in here that is making everything sort of almost as if this were interlaced on horizontally or vertically instead of horizontally. But I'm gonna rotate this. Let's see, image, rotate. Let's try counterclockwise and see what happens. And it's gonna take a few moments. It has to do that for every frame, of course. And there we go. Let's see. Zoom in. Still thinking about it, I guess. Alright, zoom in. See these really horrible, strange video lines here. Let's try video and reduce flicker. There. I can apply that to every frame. See how that is kind of removing that? That's strange artifact. It is making it slightly blurry, but it's not as blurry as it would be if we had actually done a blur on it, because it's only in one direction. So this is damage control at this point. We're still getting blockiness, but it's not as bad as it was. You know, when your supervisor hands you this back and says do it again, you can show them the video and say, you know what, they're gonna have to reshoot this because this ain't working. That's when the supervisor says, "Oh well, go ahead and put a rock in front of her, or a tree or something." You know, hide the problem, because we're not going to go back and reshoot stuff. And that's the way special effects work, basically, in a nutshell. That's why you get rocks in front of R2-D2, I guess. And I'm going to go ahead and no, not really, but anyways, I'm going to go ahead and rotate this back. Let's see, 90 degrees. And there we go. Alright, just looking at it, you can tell it looks a little bit better than it did. Not great still blocky looking. That's actually also partially because I'm zoomed in. And I'll go to my swap image, put that back. And let's see, I want to make sure I'm using the version of this that we hope is this one. Use as let's see, not gonna do that. First we have to remove that green. Remove the green. Let's see, right about in there maybe. Animate. And if last time uses selected, uses an animated selection and filter combined mix buffers. Alright. Whoops. Make sure that's in there. Mix buffers. Alright. A little better than before. Actually, quite a bit better than before. Still a little blurry, but better than it was. I'm going to animate that. The transparency looks a lot better now, than it did at least. Not very grainy looking. That's one of the problems I wanted to eliminate. It was very grainy when I tried to do it just straight through the green screen compositor without all this extra manipulation we've done to it. And at this point, I think that's probably as good as we're going to get. That's where you start looking for probably creative ways to improve the shot. We also might at this point want to take a look at the shot. Just one good trick is to flip the image to see, when you kind of see it from a different perspective. But even without looking at it, I can tell it needs some color correction, because if she were actually standing there in front of those trees and in front of that bright sunlight, she would not be as well lit probably as she is. So I'm going to clear the selection. I think we're done with these for now. I might actually want to store a copy of this. I'm going to go ahead and adjust level slightly on this. Or sorry, no, I'm going to do a curve adjustment on this. Just make her Alright, so I've made her a little bit darker against the sky. That is because the camera just does not capture that high a dynamic range of lighting usually. Another thing we might want to do is add a little bit of glow or a little glare, like this light is really bright from the sky and it's kind of spilling out over her. That'll help also cover up some of these ugly seams that we have. Other thing I might do is go ahead and use the scaling smoothing, which I had not been using up to this point. That will smooth out what we're seeing, at least so we get a better idea what it actually looks like, because we were seeing all these pixels and stuff before. That was useful for what we were doing before, but now we would just want to see what our image looks like against a composited, rather. Let's see. Not sure what I just clicked on. Alright, there we go. Anyways, so as I said before, let me store a copy. And to create this glow, we want to just take the sky part. These trees aren't going to be very glowy. They're not real bright, but the sky is going to be really bright. So we want to isolate the sky from everything else. And I'm going to do another, well, you could do a level adjustment and that would be fine. In fact, I'll just go ahead and do that. Curve adjustment was what I was going to use, but I think that'll work fine. Let me apply that to every frame. Let's do the curve and see what that looks like. Same difference. We're isolating the sky from the rest of the image. Click animate and apply it to every frame. And as soon as that's done, we're half the way there. Let's see. A couple different ways we can blur this. We want to make this glow, and we could do it a couple different ways. We could use Gaussian blur. We could use this new vector blur. That would give us this horizontal anamorphic looking blur. That could be kind of cool. Depends on what you're going for. I think we want it to be more dreamy looking, more than cinematic looking at this point. So I'm going to just use a Gaussian blur at about that level. Hit animate, and it goes pretty quick. Now the trick will be combining this with the other image. We're at 180, 190, 200. It's going pretty quick. And we're done. Alright, let me store it. Oops, store animation. And I know this is going on a little bit longer than our usual tutorials, but you know, welcome to the wonderful world of visual effects. Lots of steps, lots of things you have to do, lots of things you have to really go through to really get the best out of your shots. Because, you know, real life happens. You don't always get perfect green screen shots. In fact, you rarely ever do. I'll make this not the animator swap, but uses yes, the animator swap, not the animated selection. I'm going to go ahead and restore the one that we did the color correction on, the levels correction on. Like I said, we corrected these levels so that the sky should be darker against the sky. That's just because the camera's not able to pick up that high a level of dynamic range of color. The sky is going to be really bright, so she's going to look dark. Even though she's brightly lit, she's going to look dark in comparison to the sky. And now we're just going to go ahead and combine, in this case with screen, or you might use additive, but I think screen will do it better in this case. Click OK to apply to all frames. We're just applying this blurry version back over the top of the original one that we created. And that's about all we can do with this shot. We might actually add a little camera motion or something like that. That would actually be good. In fact, one way we could do that would be with let's see, the timeline will do it. Store a copy just in case we want to go back to it. Or of course you can use undo, saving undos in the timeline, but I'm not going to save undos since we have a stored copy. There's a little button to save and undo copy when you work with the timeline. Alright, there's a transform filter here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this. create a keyframe, go to the end, zoom out slightly. Remember we said we wanted to get rid of her feet in the shot, so we're gonna do that. Good enough. Let's just see what it looks like. Well, we might want to adjust that, but go ahead and apply that. And the difference between the keyframer and just applying frames regularly is that you can keyframe your frames and add some variation to the motions and the various parameters you have in there. In this case, we're changing the camera position, and we're just kind of zooming out a little bit. And whoops, one little mistake. I had a little border on the top there. I'm not going to worry about it for now, but we'd have to go back and redo that if we'd have to go back and redo that. Didn't catch that when I was looking at it. But as you see, we've actually the frame rate's kind of too high. Let's put this on 30 frames per second. I'd have to go back and fix that black border at the top, but you get the idea. So we've worked the best that we could with a very difficult matte. We've created some soft edges by instead of going directly through the green screen to compositor, we created a matte and then composited later. That way we're able to edit the matte itself by blurring it, doing level corrections or maximizing to kind of shrink the matte a little bit so we don't get black edges around it. We were able to make level adjustments to the matte itself. We were able to create a better quality matte by using multiple passes. And that's just some of the things we've learned to do for making basically making a better quality of image. Hope this has been informative. One more thing you might want to do is add some film grain at this point, by the way, because the video itself has some film grain. The background did not have any film grain, so you might want to actually have made a video of the background, adding film grain to that by itself. So one more thing you could do as an exercise for yourself. Thanks for watching, and enjoy Howler 9.6. Check us out at squirreldome.com. And of course, thanks for Hollywood. I always forget the name. Hollywood Camera Works for the green screen footage. And also join Philip Steger on YouTube on the PD Howler on YouTube for tutorials about PD Howler, or PD Artist, probably PD Particles, and whatever else we have. Thanks for watching, and ta-ta for now.